Welcome to K21 Academy. In this video, our expert will be discussing about SQL implementation where we will explore the fundamentals of Transact-SQL and its role in data management. He will discuss T-SQL significance in Microsoft database service like Azure SQL Database and Azure Stream Analytics, covering key concepts such as primary key, foreign key, schemas, and object names. Whether you're new to SQL or looking to refresh your knowledge, this video provides valuable insight into effective database handling. He will also guide you through in the sequence of execution in a SQL query, illuminating how data retrieval and manipulation occur in early stage. And if you are interested for more, join our free class at the end of the video for the navigation video.
So in this particular part, what we are going to talk about is just about the TSQL statement. When I say TSQL statement, so TSQL statement, it's simply a methodology, you can say, where we will be able to work with your transaction-based SQL queries or transaction-based queries. I know there is a possibility that many of you might be aware of these TSQL implementation, but we are just considering it and using it as in basics here as well, so that at least we should cover some of its aspects as well. Like we will try to provide you as much as information we can, right? So that's why we are just covering this very small part of your SQL implementation as well. Two things I'm going to discuss with you. The first part is about your introduction, and second is the quick select statement which we will be using. Actually, when you are going to work with your data flows in ADF or maybe Azure Synapse pipeline, there also sometimes these queries plays a very important role. These queries are actually help us to perform the task of monitoring the data, or sorry, to perform the task of reading the resources and providing only the relevant information which is required for our data for the analysis purpose and for the other options which is there. So when we talk about the TSQL implementation, what TSQL refers to, it's a Transact SQL. Actually, I believe that you all know this thing that SQL is not the original language, or it is not the original language of Microsoft. SQL is the original language which is developed by IBM actually. IBM, the one, these are the people who have designed this concept of your TSQL statements, and then gradually Microsoft has just created its own version as TSQL, and of course, same as Oracle also created like its own version, and you all know it with your PLSQL implementation. So in this particular part, the first thing we can have, what is this TSQL is all about, or what Transact SQL is all about. So it was a structured query language which is developed in 70s, adopted as an NSI and ISO standards and used across multiple database system. So right now, as I've told you, like TSQL is there, right? TSQL is there, then PLSQL is there, MySQL is there. Okay, so there are different type of options or different type of SQL versions you can say are available to us, which we will be able to use to perform the programming and everything. So when I talk about the Microsoft implementation, so Microsoft is using the concept of, or Microsoft is using the TSQL implementation, which is also known as your Transact SQL statements, which is a query language for SQL Server, for Azure SQL database, and other Microsoft relational database services. Even though if you are using Azure Stream Analytics, so there you use SQL, Stream Analytics query language. That Stream Analytics query language is a subset of, the Stream Analytics query language is a subset of, the Stream Analytics query language is a subset of TSQL implementation only. So here, if you are going to work with Azure SQL Data Warehouse, which is also known as your dedicated SQL pool, or if you are using serverless SQL pool, for all these options, we can have this TSQL statements available to us. So SQL is declarative, not procedural. It means I don't need to write these steps. I need to use a simple English language statements. I need to use the simple English language statements, and with the help of those simple English language statements, we will be able to query the data. We will be able to read the resources. We will be able to write the resources, update the data. Yeah, of course, update the data. And there are many other options are there you will be able to perform when you are working with your Transact SQL statement implementation. Now, the situation that we have when we are going to work with your TSQL, Actually, it is also considered as a relational database as well. So what is relational database? Relational database are initially those which consist some relationship or which have some relationship. When I say the terminology as relationship, so I believe that you all relate this relationship with your facts and dimension columns as well. You can relate this relationship as facts and dimension columns, and as you all know that in the dimension table we actually or we generally store the primary key data, and then in the fact table we generally store the foreign key references which is there. So like the same thing here in the relational database, we have entities which are represented as relations, or you can say the tables, like the same thing. If I talk about the sales order detail, you can consider this sales order detail as a fact table. These all are, this is also a fact table. These all are my, these two are my dimension tables. And with the help of these dimension tables, I will be able to analyze my data as well. Now here we have the normalized data. You all know normalized means that there is no duplicacies there, like, and the data follows the rules of the referential integrity. And then of course the other integrity operations which are there, it is initially be defined. So with relationship defined between tables, we have this primary key and foreign keys, or primary key and foreign key column. Primary key simply means the key which is unique. It means there is no repetition. While foreign key follows the concept of your references. Like if you want to pass on a references to a child table or something, then of course you will be able to use it. So let's talk few more things as well. So see, when you are going to work with your data resources, right, there are two terminologies which has been used very quickly or very thoroughly. You call them the primary key, or you can also call it as an, yeah, primary key. And there are few rules which are applied to your primary key. I believe that most of you might know it. Those who don't know it, I am just going to give you a quick refresher on that, right? So actually, when you will go with your primary key operation, first of all, there are few rules for the primary key. The first rule that you can find out for the primary key is that a primary key is always be unique. It means no repetition. No repetition, which means that suppose if you have did an employee ID as 1, right? Now you will not be able to give another entry as 1. You need to give either 2, 3, 4, whatever you have, but like you need to just give a unique entry is there. That is the first rule of your primary key, that it is always be unique. It is always be unique. The second thing is that if you are going to work with the second option which is there, the second thing is that a primary key will never be null. You cannot keep a primary key null. It means you need to provide a value to it. You need to give a value to it. Now, when you are working with this primary key operation, or if you are following this primary key operation, there are multiple type of functions which you will be able to use also along with this primary key. And one of that function, which is initially be used, we call them the identity function. Like if you want to generate an automated numbers or automated IDs. So for generating that automated IDs, you can use this identity right here, right? Which is just a quick example or quick option that we can have when you are leading to the primary key operation. Now, the second type of key that we are already talking about is what we can call a foreign key. Okay, it is known as your foreign key. So what is this foreign key is all about? First of all, a foreign key is something which actually follows the concept of your reference. It uses the concept of references. References. Now, when I say reference, so what it means that it actually takes a reference of your primary key to design the structure of a primary key, to design the structure as a foreign key relationship. Actually, it is used for the relationship purpose. If you want to create a relationship between two entities, right? So you will be able to use this foreign key relationship as well. And foreign key uses the reference of the primary key column, whatever the primary key column. So there is a possibility that when you are going to work with your primary key column, In that primary key column, you will be mentioning two things there. Now, this one is going to be your parent. This will be going to be your parent. Parent means the master, or you can say the parent table. And this one will be considered as child. This will be the child. Now, the rule is that when you are going to work with your foreign key, so now this is the foreign key that we are talking about. So first is that reference to your primary key column. And the second thing, oh, sorry. And the second thing you will find about it is that it may have the repetitive values. It may have the repetitive repetitive values, right? But there is a rule which is assigned to this. What is that rule? The rule is that suppose if I have a table with name table 1, which is my parent table, I have a table with name table 2, which is a child table. Now, if I have an entry as 1, 2, 3. So if I want to, and suppose if this entries are primary key entries. So now here, if I want to relate this with this, if I want to relate this with this, so for that relationship purpose, I need to make sure that only the value which is present in the parent table are going to be passed as a reference to the child table, which means that if I have entry as 1, so I can have multiple entries of 1. Just consider it like this, that this employee ID 1 in year 2011, he got a salary, say, suppose 10K. Now in 2012, there is an appraisal happened, and now suppose it is getting, say, 20K. Same here in 2013, 40K. But you can find out one thing, my employee ID is not changing. Only the year is changing and the amount, the salary is changing. Only the year is changing and the salary is changing. So what you can find out here is that when you are going to work, with an approach like this, at that point of time, for maintaining the relationship, you are only going to provide the values for those values which are present in the parent table. Now, if I'm going to give an entry for this 4, now if I will use 4 as an entry, right? This one is considered to be error. And what is the error? That value 4 is not present in the first table. Value 4 is not present in the first table. That's why it will give you the error. It will not accept this value. So that's a primary key foreign key relationship. Okay. Now, so here I'm going to access my database as well. And there, first of all, I need to set up some firewall rules, because whenever you are going to work with your Azure SQL database, your Azure SQL database requires a whitelisting of IP addresses. It requires the whitelisting of IP addresses. It requires a whitelisting of IP addresses. So when I say whitelisting of IP address, which simply means that whenever I'm going to create a resource or a table or something like this, at that point of time, what it will going to do is that it is going to like provide a rule that needs to be implemented. So I will go to my server. Then inside that, under security, we'll go to this networking. And I'm just going to add one rule as well. Right? I'm going to say global and then 0.0.0.0.0. And then we'll click OK. Done. Save. And then go to your database. Click on this query editor. And then we will pass the password. And I actually get access here, and I do have some predefined tables. Now, if you will talk about the sales order detail, if you can see the sales order detail, this sales order detail is actually a kind of fact table for me, and these are your dimension tables, right? Where the relationship has already been established, where a relationship has already been established, and this is your sales LT dot order detail, which is your uh, fact table, and they all are your dimension tables that you will be able to see right here. So now here you will be able to use the queries and everything. But before that, let me proceed with few more aspects which are there. So now we have schemas and object names, right? What are schemas? What are objects? Schemas are the namespace for the databases like this one. Actually, we call them the fully qualified names. Like when you are going to work with your Azure SQL database implementation, in Azure SQL database implementation, we have different type of mechanisms which is there. So now at this particular point, like when I'm going to start working with this whole operation right now, right? We actually use the concept of your part names. They are known as your part names. Part names means that it's a way through which you will be able to call your objects. Now, when I say objects, so what are objects initially? Your objects can be your database, sorry, tables. They can be your views or stored procedures. These all are different type of objects you will be able to find out when you are going to work with your SQL implementation or Azure SQL implementation as well. So when you are going to work with your Azure SQL implementation, we have a concept known as your part names. We call them the part names. Part names. So in this part names, there are four type of categories you will be able to find out, right? The first category that we have in this part name, we call them the single part name, where you are directly calling the name of your object. Like for example, a table. So I can say select star from table name. This is the one part name or a single part name where you are already providing the table, where table is what? Table is an object that we will be using. Table is an object that we will be using for my from my database, right? So this table is what? It's an object. It's an object. Then when you will proceed with that operations, then we can also have a concept of your two part name. That is known as your two part name, where select query is same, star is same, from is also same, but this time you are actually going to use a combination like schema dot table. Schema dot table. Schema is like, you can see my table here in the portal. In the portal, we have DBO. DBO is a schema. Sales LT is a schema. These all are your schemas. Schemas are initially used to define the structure of an object. So when you are going to work with your database operations, right? Database operations in your Azure SQL data implementation, we can also be able to use that schema.table, which means a two-part name as well. Apart from that, we also have a three-part name concept here, which is just another approach which you can be able to find out. So this is what we can call the three-part name.
Okay.
See what I have mentioned. In the objects, we have tables, views, and stored procedures. I haven't said that schema is an object. No, schema is not an object, right? It is design that we can be able to utilize.
Okay.
Right. So I have just mentioned, that's why I have mentioned it here, that it is not an object right now. It is simply a approach, or you can say a process that I will be using right now. So schema is separate. Only this table that is highlighted here is an object. Now in the three-part name, when you are going to access your three-part name, in the three-part name, we have same select query, star, from, but this time I am going to start with a server dot schema dot table name. And as usual, here table is an object as well. That's a three-part name. And then we have one last option here, and we call them the fully qualified name. It is known as your fully qualified or four-part name, but I call it fully qualified name. Fully qualified. Fully qualified name. When I say fully qualified name, same select query, same star, same from, but this time when you are going to get access to it, you will be using the hold on. Actually, there is a slight change over here. It should not be a server. It should be a database. So, my bad. Okay, database. But this time when I'm using this one, it will have the server. Okay, so I'm going to call it as in server dot db dot schema dot table name. This is the fully qualified name that we have in our Azure SQL database implementation. But the most frequently used approach that we have when we are going to work with that is we generally use a schema dot table name very thoroughly. We use schema dot table name very thoroughly. A single schema can have multiple tables. Remember, like this one. If I will show you my portal again, so sales LT have address, sales LT have customer, they have customer address, product, product category, description, and so on. Okay. All right. So now these are the different type of statement types that you can see right now. And our focus is completely on this statement where we are using the querying the data. So select, insert, update, delete. This is what our focus is all about. So now at this point, let's proceed further and then let's start with a select statement. Okay, now here if you can see right now, I am using a simple select query, a select statement here. So we have a statement here, select from where group by having order by. Now, actually at this point, I would like to ask a quick question. So now, can you tell me the exact sequence of execution of these all six approaches which is there? Correct information. So when I say the correct sequence of execution of this query, so maybe if the people who are already worked with your database or who are already know tables, database and all, I believe you will be able to give me the exact sequence of execution, right? Where it is starting and where it is ending and so on. So just give a try. Let's see if you will be able to get it up. So now, whenever we are going to start with this query, what will be the first state of execution or what will be the first execution which is going to be there? We will be going to give them in numbers, right? Let me take you to the sequence one by one. Okay, so to do that, let me just get my pen ready. Just 1 minute, because I don't want to use the pen which is already available uh, in my portal because then it's very difficult to just remove it, right? I'm just going to use my own custom pen here. Okay, done. So now at this point, let me go to this and let me give you the sequence here. So whenever you are going to or whenever this query is going to be executed, it is always start with from. That is the first statement. Why? Because from generally gives you the source from where you are going to read the resources or read the data. So the first thing it actually executes is basically your from where it is going to read the data. Then it will go to the where clause. So now the source data which you will be using right now, right? The source data that you will be using right now, in that source data, we use where clause for the filter purpose. Like if I want to narrow down my search, so for narrowing down my search, I would prefer to use a where clause. So from is the actual source from where you are going to read the data. Where clause is used to read the resources. Then you have group by clause. In the group by clause, we will be able to group our resources. Like for example, suppose I want to group my data on the basis of countries, because there is a possibility I may have multiple entries. I may have multiple entries of the countries. I may have multiple entries for the countries because I may have multiple clients from the same country. And suppose if I want to capture a count of those clients or anything, so I can use a group by clause. Having is the fourth step. Now, what having will do? Having is actually going to provide me the more narrowed down search. So, what I mean to say this. So, for example, I said, I have said give the details from table. So, for example, it was employee, and I give a condition where gender was male. Then in the group by clause, I said group by country, having country equals to you, maybe UK or something, right? That's going to be your next option here, which is your country UK, which is having filter. So it means it is first group all the resources, and then it is only going to give me the details of those employees who belongs to what? UK, or who are from the UK. Then the fifth statement it is going to be execute is your select query. And finally, you do have the order by query. So this is the exact sequence of execution whenever we are going to work with your select queries or select statements here.
Hey there, if you're enjoying this video and would like to go deeper and become an expert and master on data engineering on Microsoft Azure Cloud in order to get a high paying job, then I would like to invite you for a free class that I'm doing where I'm bringing a Microsoft certified trainer and a data expert. We'll be talking everything about Microsoft Azure Cloud, how to learn in this in depth, including everything related to both certification as well as in order to get a high paying job. We'll be talking about 12-week roadmap and all the hands-on labs you should be performing. So if you're interested, check out on k21academy.com/Azure Data 02.